Before we begin, let the silence settle around you. Not the kind you hear, the kind you feel crawling into the corners of the room. The story I'm about to tell wasn't meant to be spoken out loud. Someone carried it alone for far too long, afraid that saying it would make it real again. If a piece of their truth touches something you've kept buried, you can tell me in the comments. And if these quiet shadows keep pulling you back, you can like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. Now don't move. Some memories wake up when they're listened to. I still sleep with my bedroom door locked. Not because I'm paranoid, because I learned very painfully that sometimes the people who seem the safest are the ones watching you the closest. And sometimes, they're already inside your life long before you ever meet them. I didn't always live like this. Back then, I was 26, working late shifts at a pharmacy that stayed open until midnight. Quiet job, predictable, the kind where you memorize the hum of the freezers and the smell of antiseptic without even realizing it. I lived alone, in a tiny apartment above a tailor shop. Peeling paint, shaky elevator, neighbors who didn't look you in the eye. It wasn't the kind of place you brag about, but it was mine. It was safe. Or at least, I thought it was. That winter, the loneliness got heavy. You start craving conversations, even small ones. You start wanting someone to text you when you get home, someone to ask how your day went. And that's how it happened. That's how I ignored the first warning. I matched with a guy named Ryan. Clean photos, soft smile, basic bio, harmless. I told myself it was harmless. God, I should have listened to that feeling in my stomach. The quiet tightening, the one that whispered, "Don't do this." But I pushed it down, because I was tired of coming home to silence. We agreed to grab coffee. The cafe was warm, crowded enough to feel safe. The air smelled like roasted beans and wet jackets. Everyone had shaken snow off their shoulders as they walked in. I saw him before he saw me, standing by the counter, scrolling through his phone. He looked exactly like his pictures, which should have relaxed me. But when he looked up and smiled, something about it felt rehearsed. "Hi, Sarah Noor," he said. My full name, middle name included. My heart tripped over itself. I had never told him that. I laughed it off. The way women do when something feels wrong, but we don't want to seem dramatic. That should have been my first warning. I tell myself every time I replay that moment. But back then, I convinced myself it was nothing. We sat down, and at first it was fine. Normal. But then he started slipping things in. "Didn't you go to Elmwood High? I never mentioned it. You quit that old gym, right? The one near the gas station." I'd never told him that. "How's your neighbor's dog? The brown one? He still barks at the elevator." I blinked. I didn't even have that on my socials. He just shrugged and said, "I'm observant." I wanted to leave, right then. But a stupid part of me, the part that hates confrontation, smiled, nodded, pretended like this wasn't setting my nerves on fire. If I had known what was coming, I would have run. When the date ended, he didn't try anything creepy. No weird questions. No attempt to follow me home. That almost made it worse because it made me think I was overreacting. I wasn't. I got home around 11 p.m. The hallway smelled like old paint and damp carpet. My kitchen light was flickering again. Stupid loose wiring. And I made a mental note to call the landlord. I took a shower, put on pajamas, and was crawling into bed when my phone buzzed. "Ryan, your kitchen light is still flickering. You should fix it." I felt my entire body go cold. He shouldn't have known. He couldn't have known. That light could only be seen from one angle, directly outside my building. I rushed to the window and tugged the curtains shut, fingers trembling. I didn't see him, but that didn't matter. The snow outside had muffled everything. But I swear, I could feel someone standing somewhere in that silence. I called my friend and tried to explain, but when fear sounds that bizarre, it comes out messy. She told me to block him, so I did. But blocking someone doesn't make them disappear. That was only the beginning. The next night at work, something strange happened. Around 9:40, when the pharmacy is dead quiet, the front door opened. The bell chimed softly, this delicate, almost guilty sound. I looked up. No one walked in. Not right away. The smell hit first. Cold air mixed with something metallic. A smell like old coins or cold metal. Or maybe fear has its own scent, I don't know. Then I saw it. A shadow stretching across the floor before the man appeared. Tall. Still. A shape that hesitated just beyond the glow of the fluorescent lights. I squinted, and my stomach twisted. It was him, Ryan. He walked in slowly, like he was trying not to startle me. But his eyes weren't right. Too calm. Too knowing. "Hey," he said softly. "You blocked me." I felt frozen, like the air itself thickened. I tried to sound normal. "I didn't think we were a good match." He smiled. Not angry. Not hurt. Just patient. "I understand," he said. "I really do." Then he placed something on the counter. A photo. Of me. Taken the night of our date. In my hallway. Standing at my apartment door. My vision blurred for a second. Everything inside me screamed to run. To call for help. But I couldn't move. "You left your curtains open that day," he murmured. "I watched you laugh on the phone. You looked happy." I whispered, "Please leave." He stepped back, nodded like he was doing me a favor, and walked out. The bell chimed again. I locked the door behind him with shaking hands. I should have called the police. I should have run. I should have done anything except go home. But I did. That night the storm was loud. Wind rattling windows, the whole building creaking like an old ship. I walked into my apartment and felt it instantly. This dense heaviness, like the air had weight. My kitchen light was off. But something else was wrong. My bedroom door was open. I always closed it. My throat tightened. "Hello." My voice echoed back too quickly. I took one step inside. The smell hit me like a wall. That same cold metal scent, mixed with damp clothes, and something like sweat dried into fabric. I didn't want to look, but my eyes dragged themselves to the corner. Under my bed, something glinted. A phone screen, face down, still subtly glowing. But it wasn't mine. Hands shaking, I crouched and slowly lifted the edge of the blanket. Breathing, not mine. Shallow, slow, intentional. I stumbled back so hard I hit the dresser. A man slid out from under the bed. Ryan, eyes wide open, not blinking, just watching me like I was a puzzle he finally solved. I screamed. He lunged. I grabbed the first thing I could, a ceramic vase, and smashed it into his shoulder. He stumbled enough for me to run. I flew down the stairs, barefoot on frozen concrete, screaming for help. The tailor from downstairs opened his door. He pulled me inside and locked it. Police came. They searched my apartment. He was gone. The only thing they found was his phone under my bed. The pictures inside it, I wish I'd never seen them. Photos of me sleeping, cooking, showering, walking to work, talking to customers, standing at the bus stop. Dozens, hundreds, taken over months. He had been watching me long before I matched with him. Long before I ever knew his name. They never found him. The photos stopped when I moved cities. But sometimes, when I walk home at night, I feel that same tightening in my stomach. That same electricity prickling the back of my neck. Sometimes I cross the street, and I swear someone crosses too. Sometimes I hear footsteps behind me, stopping when I stop. And sometimes, when I pass the alley near my new building, I smell it again. Cold metal, old sweat, patience. I still sleep with my door locked, and I still check under my bed. Because the man who knew too much about me knew how to wait. Living in a different city, different job, different plates on my car. But I still can't drive after sunset. I tell people it's because of night blindness or anxiety. It's easier than saying what really happened. It's easier than admitting that sometimes. When I'm at a red light after dark, I feel a pair of unseen headlights behind me that never turn on. Back then, I was 28, heartbroken, pathetic, honestly. I had just crawled out of a breakup that left me checking my phone like a reflex. Reopening chats, rereading old arguments, blaming myself, then blaming her, then blaming myself again. My days were split between work at a small logistics office and long, empty evenings scrolling through my phone. That's how I ended up on that stupid dating app. You don't join those things because you're confident. You join because you're lonely enough to pretend you're okay. That's where I saw her. Mina. Black hair in a loose ponytail, shy smile, nothing flashy. No filters, no angles, just soft lighting and a faded poster in the background of one of her selfies. She didn't look like a model. She looked normal, safe. Her bio was simple. Night drives, milkshakes, quiet places. Felt like bait tailored just for me. We started talking. It was easy. Too easy. She laughed at my stupid jokes. She replied fast, like she was just sitting there waiting. She always answered questions, but never asked many. I should have felt off. Didn't. Not then. If I had known what was coming, I would have deleted that app and thrown my phone in the nearest drain. Instead, I suggested grabbing milkshakes. Late night, she wrote. I like it when it's quiet. Pick me up? I'm a little outside town. Outside town. That should have been the first sign something was wrong. But I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. See, the area outside our town isn't like the highway. There are no real streetlights, no constant traffic. Just farmland, dirt, pockets of fog over dry fields. Once you leave the last gas station, it becomes the kind of darkness that doesn't just sit outside your car. It presses against the windows. I remember that night clearly because of the cold. It was the kind of winter cold that gets into your fingers even with the heater on. The windshield had that thin mist that catches light from oncoming cars and smears it. Only there weren't any oncoming cars that night. The further I drove, the quieter it got. The radio signal started breaking up. Only static and the soft rattle of things in my glove compartment. Almost there, she texted. You'll see a street lamp. I'll be under it. A single street lamp. In the middle of nowhere. I should have turned around right then. But heartbreak makes you stupid. Loneliness makes you reckless. I kept driving. And then I saw it. One pale yellow street lamp cutting through the dark like a spotlight on an empty road. No houses. No shops. Just fields stretching out on both sides. Black and endless. Under that light she stood. Arms wrapped tightly around herself. Head slightly bowed. Wind tugged at her hair. The glow from the street lamp made her skin look washed out. Like she'd been standing there for a long time. I slowed down, headlights catching her face. Yeah, it was her. Same shy smile. Same eyes. But she wasn't alone. A man stood a few feet behind her. He wasn't in the light completely, just close enough that I could see the outline of him. Tall. Hands at his sides. Still. No phone in his hand. No cigarette. Just watching. He never looked directly at my car. Just slightly to the side, like he was focusing on the space around me. My stomach dropped. That should have been my first warning. I pulled up next to her, engine idling, fingers tight on the steering wheel. My instinct screamed at me, don't open the door. Don't unlock anything. Leave. But loneliness whispered louder. She hurried to the passenger side and slipped in, shutting the door in one rapid movement. She clicked the lock herself. Up close, she smelled like cold air and cheap floral perfume, the kind that comes in glass bottles with faded labels. Drive, she whispered. Not hi. Not nice to meet you. Just that. Is everything okay? I tried to smile. Was that your? Just drive, she repeated, eyes wide, staring straight ahead. Please, don't stop. Don't slow down. I glanced into the rearview mirror. The man in the shadows turned his head just slightly. Then he walked out of the street lamp's glow and disappeared into the dark behind us. I put the car in gear and pulled away, trying to laugh it off even as sweat gathered on my palms. Boyfriend, I joked weakly. She shook her head. No, Dad. She shook her head again. Who was? He doesn't like when I meet people. She cut in, voice flat, almost numb. He doesn't like new people. My chest tightened. Mina, who is he? She swallowed. Her hands were clenched in her lap, knuckles white. He just watches, she said quietly. He's always watched. When I was with my friends. When I tried to date. When I tried to move. He always finds me. The heater hummed. Tires hummed against the cracked asphalt. Outside, the fields blurred in darkness. Behind us, in the mirror, a shape appeared. A black pickup truck. No headlights. I felt my heart kick. Kept its distance at first, just a darker shadow on an already dark road. Then it moved closer, closing the gap like it had all the time in the world. "Mina," I whispered. "Is that?" "Don't slow down," she murmured. "Don't stop. He doesn't like when I meet people." Those words echoed like they'd been rehearsed, like she'd said them before in other cars with other drivers. The truck stayed on us, no lights, no plate visible. Just a matte shape like something cut out of the night itself. My hands were slick on the wheel, heart pounding in my ears. The road ahead felt endless. My chest buzzed with adrenaline. I should have turned into the main highway. I should have gone where there were people, cameras, lights. Instead, I stayed on that empty road. Frozen in my own stupidity, the truck inched closer. I could hear it now. Low engine rumble vibrating through my rear window. Every time I glanced in the mirror, my vision tunneled on that black shape. "Why is he doing this?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Mina," her voice came out soft, like a confession. "He uses people to bring me back. Makes me think I'm leaving. Makes them think they're rescuing me." My throat went dry. "What do you mean, back?" She turned her head slowly and looked at me for the first time since getting in. Her eyes were wet, empty and wet. "You shouldn't have come," she said. The truck surged forward. Clipped my rear bumper just enough to jolt the car. My whole body snapped forward, seatbelt biting into my chest. "Shit!" I slammed my foot down on the gas. The road narrowed. No more side lanes, just ditches on both sides. A long, black tunnel of night. The truck hit us again, harder. The smell of burnt rubber, of something overheating, filled the car. "Call the police," I shouted. She stared at me, confused. "They never come in time. How many people has he done this to?" She didn't answer that either. Something was wrong with the way she was breathing. Too calm, too slow, like she'd accepted this long before I did. A sharp bend appeared ahead. "Hang on," I muttered. I took it too fast. The tires lost grip for a second. The back of the car fishtailed, gravel spraying. For a heartbeat, I thought we were going into the ditch. But the truck didn't take the turn. In the mirror, I saw it keep going straight, off the road, vanishing into a darkness so thick it swallowed everything. No crash sound, no skid, just gone. He was there, then he wasn't. I don't remember the exact moment we got back into town. It blurs. Neon signs, street lights, the reassuring ugliness of civilization. I remember parking outside my building, hands still shaking, my mouth dry as sand. When I turned to Mina to ask if she wanted me to call someone, she was already looking at me. "Thank you for the ride," she said softly. She didn't reach for the door handle. I glanced down at her hands. They were clean, too clean. No marks from gripping the seat. No sign of tension. Something about her felt hollow. "Mina, who is he?" I tried again. "And how did he find my street? My profile? How does he?" "You'll see him again," she said quietly. Not as a threat, as a fact. "He doesn't like when people meet me. He remembers them." A cold wave rolled over me. "Just don't drive at night," she added. "It's easier that way." Then she opened the door and stepped out into the yellow pool of streetlight. I watched her walk down the road. At the corner, she turned left. When I blinked, she was gone. No door, no gate, no house she could have slipped into that fast. Just an empty sidewalk and a dead tree. I tell myself I was tired, that my brain filled in gaps that weren't really there. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. For the next few weeks, at exactly 2 a.m., a black pickup drove slowly past my street. No lights, no plate. Sometimes it paused at the intersection near my building, engine idling. I'd stand at my window, lights off, watching that shadow sit there like a patient animal. And each time my phone would buzz. No message, just a notification that someone had made a new account on the same dating app. Same bio. Night drives, milkshakes, quiet places. I moved cities not long after. New job, new apartment, new life. I deleted the app, changed my number, sold the car. But some nights, when I'm stupid enough to be outside after dark, I see it, in the side mirror of a taxi, parked across from a late-night cafe, coasting slowly at the far end of the street. Black pickup, no lights, no plates. Sometimes I swear I see someone in the passenger seat, just a faint outline under the street lamp, head bowed, hands in their lap, like they're waiting for me to pull over, like the whole thing is starting again. So yeah, I don't drive after sunset anymore. And if some cute profile ever asks you to pick them up a little outside town, do yourself a favor, don't go, because some people aren't profiles, they're bait. And some cars on the road aren't just cars. They're something that remembers you. Living in a cramped apartment with thin walls and too many locks on the doors. But this story is from when I was 25, and still naive enough to think a warm smile meant safe. Even now, whenever I hear a door creak, my chest tightens. It doesn't matter if it's in a movie, or my neighbor coming home, or just old wood shifting in the night. My body reacts before my brain can say, you're not there anymore. But in my head, I am. Every time. Back then, I'd just come out of a bad relationship. The kind that doesn't leave bruises on your skin, just on your mind. Constant second-guessing, walking on eggshells, apologizing for things you didn't do. When it finally ended, I told everyone I felt free. I felt hollow. I felt like I didn't know how to trust anyone anymore. So when a mutual friend introduced me to this guy, Hamza, I wanted so badly for him to be different that I ignored a lot I shouldn't have. He had that good guy look. Soft eyes, neat beard, button-up shirts with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. He listened more than he talked. He asked how I was really doing after the breakup, not just the polite version. We texted for a bit. Voice notes, stupid memes. Late night, are you still awake? Messages. He never pushed, never crossed lines, never made me feel unsafe. That was the first sign something was wrong, because it felt a little too perfect, like someone trying on the idea of trustworthy and making sure they hit every bullet point. If I had known what was coming, I would have blocked him the moment he suggested what he did next. Come over, he said one day. I make a pretty decent pasta. You deserve a home-cooked dinner for once. Home. His home. First date. Red flag, right? I saw it. I really did. I even typed out a whole paragraph about not going to a man's house alone. Then I deleted it. I told myself I was fine. I keep repeating whenever I replay that night. I wasn't. I told myself it was okay because a mutual friend knew him, because he sent me his location, because he said his sister sometimes stayed there. I layered excuses over my instincts until they stopped shouting and settled into a quiet, uneasy murmur. His house was on a quiet street near the older part of town. Narrow road, leaning trees, cracked sidewalks. The kind of place where the streetlights buzz and flicker and everything smells like damp concrete after sunset. I remember stepping out of the ride and seeing the house for the first time. 2 stories, peeling white paint, a small front porch with a single wooden chair. One upstairs window lit by this soft, warm light. The rest of the house looked tired, like it hadn't had a real laugh inside it in a very long time. When I rang the doorbell, I smelled it before anything else. Garlic and butter from the kitchen, vanilla candles, and underneath all of that, something sour, like wet cloth left in a closed room, like a basement that never really dries. He opened the door with that warm, harmless smile I'd seen in photos. You made it, he said. Come in, it's cold. It was. The night air bit into my cheeks. Inside, the temperature changed instantly, too warm, almost claustrophobic, like the heat had been running for hours. The hallway was narrow, walls close, painted a yellow that might have looked cheerful once. The lights overhead flickered, a quick dimming and brightening like the house was taking shallow breaths. On my left, the living room. Tidy, neutral furniture, TV mounted on the wall, a folded blanket on the couch. On my right, a closed door. Straight ahead, the kitchen, glowing under warm lights. My eyes were drawn to the end of the hallway. A door, plain, wooden, slightly darker than the others. A faint line of shadow underneath it. A cold draft slipping out and licking at my ankles. I didn't know why, but the sight of that door made every hair on my arms rise. That should have been my first warning. Hamza touched my elbow lightly. Kitchen's this way. I hope you're hungry. The kitchen was spotless. Counters wiped down. Utensils lined up. Pots simmering quietly on the stove. Steam rose in soft clouds, carrying the smell of garlic, tomatoes, and herbs. 2 plates were already set out on the small dining table, candles burning between them. It should have felt romantic, safe, intimate, felt staged. I cooked everything, he said, a little proud. Sit, sit. I tried to relax, to breathe, to act like this wasn't a bad idea. As we ate, I noticed it. He kept glancing past me, not at the oven, not at the window, at the hallway. I followed his gaze once and my stomach tightened. His line of sight lined up perfectly with that door. Your house is nice, I said, trying to sound casual. Do you live alone? He hesitated for a fraction of a second. Yeah, mostly. There it was again. That feeling. The one I'd trained myself to ignore in my last relationship. The small prickle of something isn't right. I stabbed at my pasta. What's down there? I nodded toward the hallway, forcing a light tone. Your secret horror movie basement? He laughed, but it came out thinner than before. His hand tightened around his fork. Nothing you need to worry about, he said. Something in his voice made my fingers go cold. We changed the subject. Work, movies, mutual friends. He was good at keeping conversations flowing, but his eyes kept drifting away from his own words, pulling towards the hallway like there was a magnet hidden in that wood. Halfway through dinner, the lights flickered again. I joked, see? Horror movie electricity. He didn't laugh that time. The sour smell came in stronger then, riding on a draft that slipped under the kitchen door, curling around my ankles like cold fingers. Damp concrete, old water, something else under it all, something metallic and faint. I swallowed hard. The food in my mouth suddenly felt heavy. My body wanted to leave. My brain wanted to prove it wasn't scared. If I had known what was coming, I whisper to myself sometimes, I would have run in that exact moment. After we finished eating, he stood up. Ice cream? I've got dessert in the freezer. Sure, I said, even though my appetite was gone. He smiled, too wide, too eager, and walked out of the kitchen toward the hallway. I listened to his footsteps fade, the creak of a different door opening. Freezer, I told myself. He's just getting ice cream. That's all. The house went quiet. Quiet in that thick way where the silence feels like a sound of its own. The fridge hummed. The candle flame wavered. Somewhere in the walls, I heard a faint vibration, like pipes settling. Then, from the end of the hallway behind that basement door, something else. A knock, soft, muffled. From the other side, I froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid. I stared at the kitchen entrance like I could see through the wall. Another knock, slightly louder, rhythmic, not random. My breath turned shallow. You know how your mind tries to reason with you? It's the house settling. It's the radiators. It's the wind. I went through all of those excuses in a second, clinging to them like a drowning person clings to debris. And then I heard it. A voice, faint, rough, like someone who hadn't had water in too long. Help, please, came from the direction of that door. It sounded like it had to push through walls to reach me. My skin went ice cold. I felt goosebumps rippling up my arms, my legs, the back of my neck. Hamza, I called, my voice cracking. Is someone here? No answer from him. Just that whisper again, a little more desperate. Please. The sound of a nail dragging, maybe, a soft scrape against wood. Under that, something else, like the quick, panicked breaths of someone trying not to cry. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. My chair scraped loudly as I stood up, the sound too sharp in the quiet kitchen. I stepped into the hallway. The air was colder there, heavy with the smell of old stone and something stale, like a room that had cried and never been opened. The light overhead flickered once, twice. The basement door sat at the end, closed, still. A faint shadow spilled out under the gap. I took one more step forward. On the other side of the door, the whisper came again, barely audible. "He's coming, please." Every instinct screamed at me to run. Another part of me said, "You can't just leave someone there." My hand lifted, almost on its own, reaching toward the doorknob. Cold air leaked from the gap, brushing my fingers. Felt wrong, deeply wrong, like stepping barefoot onto something wet in the dark. From the kitchen, behind me, I heard Hamza's voice. "Don't," he said quietly. My blood turned to ice. I spun around. He stood halfway down the hallway, holding 2 bowls of ice cream. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, watching my hand near the doorknob. My voice shook. "I heard." "The pipes," he said flatly. "This house is old. They make noises. It freaks people out. Come back to the kitchen." The whisper from behind the door didn't come again. The silence was somehow worse. I looked at him, at the bowls, at the door, at his knuckles tightening just slightly around the ceramic. That's when something inside me finally snapped into focus. I didn't know him politeness. I didn't know him the benefit of the doubt. I didn't know anyone my safety. I should have listened to that feeling. I tell myself now. At least that time I finally did. "I'm not feeling well," I blurted. "I think I should go." His jaw tensed, just for a second. Then he smiled. "Of course," he said. "Another time, maybe." I grabbed my bag from the chair by the door. I didn't look back at the basement. As I stepped outside, the temperature hit me like a slap. The cold night air smelled clean compared to the layered scents inside. No garlic, no candles, no damp concrete. Just frost and exhaust and distant wood smoke. He stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame. "Text me when you get home," he said. "Yeah." I lied. He didn't chase me. He didn't call after me. He just watched as I walked down the path and got into the car. The house shrinking in the rearview mirror until it was just another shadow on a quiet street. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing that whisper in my head. "Help, please." I kept asking myself if I'd imagined it. If trauma and anxiety had finally melted into full-blown paranoia. 2 days later, I got my answer. I was at work when the news alert popped up on my phone. Same street, same house. Police tape staked across the front yard. Blue and red lights cutting through the gray morning. Neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, their breath visible in the cold air. My hands were shaking before I even opened the article. They had found someone in his basement. Alive. Barely. The details blurred, the exact charges, the timeline, the number of days that person had been missing. My vision tunneled on one line. A neighbor reported hearing strange noises over the last week, but assumed it was the plumbing. I stared at my phone until the words swam. Someone else had heard it and done nothing, just like I had. I didn't tell the police I'd been there. I should have. I know that. But shame twisted around my throat like a hand. How do you walk into a station and say, "I heard someone beg for help," and I ran? Since then, every creak in my building sounds like that basement door shifting in its frame. Every soft knock from the apartment next door makes my heart stutter. Sometimes, late at night, when the building settles and the water runs through old pipes, I hear it again. That faint, rasping whisper in the dark. "Help, please." Only now it's not just a voice on the other side of a door. It's inside my head, because I keep wondering, if I'd opened that door that night, if I'd stepped inside that cold, sour darkness, would I have saved someone? Or would I be the one down there now? The one knocking, the one waiting for footsteps that never come. So if you ever find yourself in someone's house, and there's a door they keep glancing at, a room they don't talk about, a sound they pretend not to hear, listen to that feeling. Because some doors don't just hide secrets. They hide the people who learn too late what happens when you open them, or when you don't. Working a boring office job. Living in a building where the walls are thin and the nights are too quiet. But 2 years ago, I was a different person. Back then, I was the guy who said yes to any distraction. Any drink, any party, any date. I told people I was enjoying my freedom after a long relationship ended. I wasn't enjoying anything. I was just trying not to go home to an empty room. That's how I met her. Lara. Soft voice. Round glasses. A profile picture where she was half hidden behind a book. She didn't look like the usual, I need attention type. She looked gentle, normal, safe. We talked for a week. Short voice notes at night, little updates during the day. She laughed easily, but there was always this delay before she replied. Like she was reading things twice, like she was measuring every word. If I had known what was coming, I tell myself now, I would have heard the fear in her voice. One evening, she suggested we meet. Let's go for a walk, she wrote. I don't like crowded places. There's a park near your side of town. I stared at that message for a long time. Let me back up a bit. The park near my side of town isn't the kind of place you suggest for a first date. Not at night. People talk about it. Poor lighting, long paths, trees swallowing up what little light there is. A couple of mugging stories. A rumor about a woman who'd gone missing there years ago. I almost said no. But then I thought about how long it had been since I'd held someone's hand. Since I'd felt another human being close enough to smell their shampoo. I told myself it would be fine. It's just a park. It's just a walk. I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. We picked a time, 7:30 p.m., that awkward hour when the sky is too dark to be evening and too early to be midnight. I got there a bit early and waited by the rusty entrance gate, hands shoved in my pockets. The air smelled like damp leaves and cold metal. Someone had burned trash nearby. The faint, acrid smoke hung low, mixing with the sweet rot of wet soil. Most of the lamps lining the main path were either weak or dead. The few that worked flickered like they were about to give up. That was the first sign something was wrong. She arrived in a red hoodie. Not bright, cartoon red. A darker shade, faded at the sleeves. Hood up, hands in the pockets, sneakers tapping nervously on the pavement as she walked toward me. I remember thinking she looked smaller in person. Fragile, almost. Imran? She asked. Her voice sounded exactly like her voice notes, but thinner. Tired. Yeah, I smiled. You must be Lara. She nodded, gave a quick, awkward half-hug that barely touched my shoulders, and stepped back. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said too fast. I didn't want to be around too many people. The park is quieter. I glanced past her. Quieter was an understatement. We started walking, our breath fogged in the cold air, little clouds disappearing as soon as they formed. Gravel crunched under our shoes. Every sound felt too loud. I noticed it after a minute. She kept avoiding the lampposts. Instead of walking under the small circles of light, she drifted a little to the side, keeping to the shadows. When we approached a lamp that buzzed particularly loud, she actually flinched and moved closer to the trees. That should have been my first warning. You really hate bright lights that much? I tried to joke. She gave a tiny laugh. Something like that. Her hands were stuffed deep in her hoodie pocket, shoulders slightly hunched. I told myself she was just cold, just shy, just anxious about a first date. But that feeling in my chest, that tight, sinking weight, didn't go away. We didn't talk about anything heavy. Work, music, our mutual hatred of small talk. But every now and then, in the middle of a sentence, she'd stop and look over her shoulder, like she'd heard someone behind us. I'd look too. Nothing. Just trees. Empty path. A soft breeze nudging fallen leaves over cracked pavement. If I had known what was coming, I would have turned around then and there. We reached the center of the park, where the dried-up fountain sat like a broken monument. No water, just cracked concrete and graffiti on the sides. A lone bench faced it, paint peeled and flaking. Lara sat down slowly, like her knees were too weak to keep her standing. You okay? I asked again, sitting beside her. She didn't answer at first. Her hands were shaking. I noticed then how pale her fingers looked, the nails bitten down too far, the skin around them red and raw. She kept pressing her thumbs into her palms like she was trying to ground herself. Do you hear it? She whispered. A sudden gust of wind blew through, carrying the smell of wet earth and something faintly sour, like old sweat soaked into fabric. "Here, what?" I asked. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were locked on something behind me. My back prickled. Slowly, with a hand that trembled, she lifted her arm and pointed over my shoulder. I turned. At first, I thought the darkness was playing tricks on me. Then my eyes adjusted. There, maybe 20 feet away, standing just beyond the weak halo of a broken lamppost, was a woman in a red hoodie, the same shade as Lara's. Hood up, face tilted down so I couldn't see her eyes. Bare feet, white, dirty, toes curling slightly on the cold path. Just standing there, the air felt thinner immediately, like the space between us and that figure had been sucked dry. I laughed because that's what your brain does when it can't process what it's seeing. "Okay," I said, voice too loud. "Is this like a prank? Are we on some weird hidden camera show?" Lara's hand shot out and clamped around my arm. Her nails dug into my jacket hard enough to hurt. "She followed me last night too," she whispered. Something about the way she said it made the laughter die in my throat. The woman in the hoodie didn't move. No shifting weight. No flick of hair. No sign of breathing. Just that still, bent head and those pale, bare feet on the concrete. All I could hear was the distant hum of traffic far outside the park, the leaves rustling, and Lara's breathing speeding up beside me. "Hey!" I called out, forcing my voice steady. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" No answer. The woman's head tilted, just a fraction, like a puppet string being pulled. Her feet dragged forward. Not walked, dragged. The sound it made, I still hear it sometimes when I'm half asleep. Skin and bone scraping over grit and small stones. Soft, slow, like she had all the time in the world. She stepped into the light of the nearest functioning lamppost for a second. That's when I saw her face. Or what was left of an attempt at a face. The skin looked wrong. Too pale, like paper soaked and dried. Lips cracked, colorless. I don't know how to explain it. They weren't wide or dramatic. They were just empty, like someone had erased whatever was supposed to be behind them. My body reacted before my mind did. Every hair snapped to attention. A cold wave rippled over my skin, and my vision tunneled. "Imran," Lara choked out. "Don't let her touch you." The woman kept dragging her feet closer. One slow, deliberate step at a time. I could smell her now. Not rot exactly. More like damp fabric locked in a closed room for too long. Mildew. Stale, wet cotton. Underneath that, something faintly metallic. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Who is that?" I hissed. Lara's grip tightened. "I don't know her name." "You're joking." "She started coming after the thing with my ex," she stammered. "He said I wouldn't be alone. Ever." I thought he meant. Another dragging step. Her bare feet left faint, wet impressions on perfectly dry concrete. "I thought she was just in my dreams," Lara whispered. "But last night she was outside my building. And now," the woman raised her head a little more. We still couldn't see her eyes completely, but I could feel them, like two cold fingers pressed gently against my throat from a distance. Every instinct screamed, "Run." "I'm done," I muttered. "We're leaving." I grabbed Lara's hand and pulled her up, my legs already moving before I'd fully decided what to do. The woman didn't speed up. She didn't lunge or chase. She just kept dragging forward, slow and patient, as if she knew the paths we'd take no matter what. We ran. Our footsteps slammed into the pavement, breath burning in our lungs. Branches clawed at my jacket as we cut across the grass toward the main gate. My chest ached, the cold air slicing my throat with every inhale. "Don't look back," I told myself. I did. She was closer than she should have been. Same dragging steps, same slow pace, but somehow the distance we'd gotten didn't make sense. Her hoodie barely moved with the wind. Her feet, I watched them for a second, horrified. They weren't quite landing right, like they were remembering how to touch the ground. We broke out onto the main path. The entrance gate was ahead, a dark shape against the streetlights beyond the park. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights washing over the world in brief, normal slices of reality. Almost there, I panted. Just keep running. Lara's breathing hitched, a small whimper escaping her. I felt her grip falter. I looked down at her hand in mine. Her skin was freezing, not cold like a winter walk, cold like metal left outside in January. I squeezed, trying to anchor both of us. "Imran," she gasped. "If she touches me again, I don't think I'll come back next time." Again, the word slammed into me. I didn't have time to process it. We burst through the gate and out onto the sidewalk, nearly colliding with a man walking his dog. He cursed at us as we stumbled past, but his anger sounded distant, underwater. I looked back one last time. The park entrance yawned open, black and empty. No woman in a red hoodie, no dragging footsteps. She was gone. I told myself it was over. I told myself we'd outrun whatever that was. I told myself maybe I'd imagined how wrong her face looked. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. When I turned to Lara, ready to ask 1,000 questions, she was staring back at the park, lips trembling. "I have to go home," she muttered. "I shouldn't be outside this late." I offered to walk her, to call a ride, to at least stay on the phone. She shook her head, pulled her hood up tighter, and said, "She doesn't like it when other people help." Then she walked away down the sidewalk, hoodie bobbing as she moved, disappearing around the corner. That was the last time I saw her. The next day, she unmatched me. Profile gone. Number disconnected. Mutual friends said, "Oh, I think she deactivated everything." She's like that. I tried to forget, to bury it under work and noise and new conversations with new people who didn't mention parks or red hoodies. But some things don't stay buried. A few weeks later, late at night, I was leaving a grocery store. The parking lot was almost empty. Cold air, yellow lights, the hum of a distant generator. As I pushed the trolley toward my car, I saw her, not Lara, her, at the far end of the lot between two pillars of light. Red hoodie, hood up, face tilted down, bare feet on cracked asphalt. She didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there, like a glitch in the world, waiting for nothing. I blinked. She was gone. Since then, it's like she's been following the edges of my life. On a bus one evening, I glanced out the window and caught a flash of red fabric behind a row of trees. At a gas station, I saw the shape of her reflection in the glass door, even though no one was standing there when I turned around. Sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear it. Breathing. Not mine. Not from the apartment next door. Closer. A slow inhale right by my bed. The faint rustle of fabric. The almost sound of bare feet shifting on tile. I sleep with a lamp on now. It doesn't help, because I've realized something. That night in the park, when Lara grabbed my arm and begged me not to let the woman touch her, when she said she'd been followed for nights, when she said, "If she touches me again, I don't think I'll come back next time," I think she meant it literally. I think somewhere between those nights and that park bench, Lara stopped being the only one being followed. Now, when I walk past bus stops or parking lots, and I see someone in a red hoodie standing too still, I look away, because I don't want to know if she's closer than last time, and I don't want to find out what happens when she finally reaches me. I triple-check every address before I go anywhere. I know that sounds like a joke, but it's not. It's survival. This happened 3 years ago, when I was finally crawling out of a long, ugly depression. The kind where days blur, curtains stay closed, and the only light you see is from your phone screen. Back then, going on a date wasn't just a date. It felt like proof that I was still a person, that someone could look at me and not just see the mess. That's why I said yes to Talia. We met on an app like everyone does now. Her profile stood out, not because she was insanely glamorous or anything, but because she was precise. Book recommendations, sarcastic captions, a photo where she was half laughing at something off camera. We traded long messages, then voice notes. She was smart, quick, dark sense of humor. She called me out on my self-deprecating jokes. She remembered little things I'd said about my dad, about how I hated Sundays. If I had known what was coming, I tell myself now, I would have been okay staying lonely a little longer. After a week of talking, she suggested dinner. At my place, she said. I cook when I'm anxious. You can be my excuse to overdo it. I hesitated. First date at her place. New area, new person. But she sent me an address, a Google Maps pin, even a photo of her street. Quiet, I know, she'd added. But I promise I'm not a serial killer. Yet, I laughed, typed back a joke, ignored the small squeeze in my chest. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. Her street really was quiet. Rows of narrow, identical houses, all lined up like copy-paste versions of each other. Small front steps, low walls, patchy grass. Almost every window had curtains drawn. A single street lamp flickered at the intersection, making everything pulse with a sick, yellow light. It was around 8 p.m. cool air. My breath showed a little when I exhaled, a faint fog that disappeared too fast. I was wearing a jacket that suddenly felt too thin. I held a cheap bouquet in one hand and my phone in the other, zooming in on the house numbers. There it was, 47B. Her text replayed in my head. Light gray door, dent near the bottom. That's me. The door was light gray. There was a dent at the bottom, like someone had kicked it too hard once. It matched. I remember standing there for a second, looking up and down the street. No cars passing. No music. No open windows. Just that flickering lamp at the corner and the hum of distant traffic. That was the first sign something was wrong. I pushed it down. I walked up the short path, felt the uneven concrete under my shoes, and rang the doorbell. The sound echoed dully inside. Not the sharp ding of a busy house, more like a single note that went too far into empty space. The door opened, too slowly, not the quick pull of someone excited to see you. It creaked inward, inch by inch, until a sliver of dim hallway appeared, lit by this weak, yellowish glow. Then she appeared. But it wasn't Talia. An older woman stood in the doorway, pale skin with that sickly undertone of someone who doesn't go outside. Hair tangled, falling in uncombed waves around her face. Her eyes looked empty, not sad, not angry, just blank, like someone had turned the lights off behind them. Ferris, she whispered. Hearing my name from that mouth made my stomach drop. I hadn't told Talia my full name on the app, just my first. I told myself maybe I'd mentioned it in a voice note and she'd passed it on to her roommate. I was already trying to explain it away. That should have been my first warning. I forced a smile, lifted the flowers slightly. Hi, I'm looking for Talia. Her lips twitched into something that might have been a smile once, but didn't get there. Come in, she said, stepping back. Her voice was dry, like old paper being folded. I didn't move. From where I stood, I could see behind her into the hallway. The air looked heavy, like the house was holding its breath. No framed photos, no clutter, just bare walls, scuffed at ankle height, and a long runner rug that disappeared into darkness. The smell hit me next. Wet cloth, metal. Underneath it, a sour, stale layer, like moisture trapped in a closed space for too long, like laundry left in a machine for days, the kind of smell that clings to the back of your throat. Are you Talia's roommate? I asked. Yes, she said instantly. Too fast. I glanced around, expecting to hear voices, music from a speaker, the clatter of someone in the kitchen. Nothing. Just the faint hum of electricity and the tick of a clock I couldn't see. No one else is here yet, she added. Come in. You're early. I wasn't early. I was right on time. That knowledge sat in the pit of my stomach like a stone. I took a half step over the threshold. The air was cooler inside. The floor felt wrong under my shoes, like the boards were too thin or hollow. A lamp in the corner of the living room cast a weak circle of light, leaving the edges of the room swallowed in shadow. No TV, no couch, no shoes by the door, no jackets hung up. Just that lamp, a small wooden chair against the wall, and a low table that looked like it hadn't been dusted properly in a long time. Talia's just getting ready, the woman murmured. She'll be down soon. Her eyes never left my face, didn't blink. I shifted from foot to foot, fingers tightening around the bouquet so hard I heard stems crack. I pulled my phone out, thumb hovering over the screen. I'll just text her I'm here. Her lips moved again, stretching wider. You already came in, she said. That's good. Last time you stood outside for so long. A chill rolled through me. Last time. I laughed weakly. First time for me. She tilted her head to the side, like a bird. Her pupils looked too big in the dim light. Oh, she whispered. You don't remember. A faint sound drifted from somewhere deeper in the house then. Not footsteps, more like something soft brushing against a wall. The lamp's light trembled slightly, as if the bulb reacted to it. My palms were slick. My heartbeat lurched into my throat. I opened the chat with Talia. Hey, I'm at 47B. Are you home? I hit send. Almost instantly, the typing bubble appeared. Running late. Already inside. I stared at the screen, then at the woman. Her hands were empty. No phone in sight. No glow of a screen reflected in her eyes. She just stood there, body too still, watching me like I was the only thing in the room that mattered. I swallowed. She says she's running late, I managed. She asked if I'm already inside. That word felt wrong in my mouth now. Inside. The woman's expression didn't change. Didn't shift, not even slightly. No sign she'd heard me. The smell of damp cloth and metal seemed stronger, pressing against the back of my nose. I think, I said slowly, that I'll just wait outside. You can tell her I stopped by. I tried to step back. Her eyes widened, just a fraction. But it was enough. It was like watching a crack appear in a frozen surface. For the first time, emotion flickered across her face, but I couldn't name it. Not anger, not sadness. Something older, something offended. You already came in, she said again, voice a notch colder. You already did this. My skin crawled. Did what? I whispered. She blinked then, just once, long and slow. Came in, sat down, stayed, she said. Last time, every instinct I had, that I had been suppressing since the moment I set foot on that street, exploded at once. Run. I didn't answer her. I didn't try to be polite. I didn't try to pretend I wasn't scared. I turned, shoved off the doorframe and walked out. Too fast to be casual, too slow to be truly sprinting. My shoes hit the front step with a hollow thud. The cold night air slapped my face. I sucked in a breath that tasted clean for the first time in minutes. Rude. Her voice floated after me. It didn't sound angry. It sounded disappointed. I didn't look back. I made it to the sidewalk before my legs started shaking. I forced myself not to run until I hit the main road. Cars. Light. Noise. Other people. My phone buzzed again. Ferris, I'm so sorry, Talia's message read. I just realized I sent 47B instead of 74B. I'm so stupid. Please don't hate me. Here's the right pin. I stopped walking, turned around. From where I was standing, I could still see the row of houses. Identical, quiet, watching the street with dark windows. My eyes found 47B. The door was still open, and the woman was still standing there. Same place, same posture, same tangled hair. But this time, she was smiling. A wide, fixed smile that stretched too far, showing too many teeth. Not sharp, not monstrous, just wrong in how long it stayed there. Like the smile of someone replaying a memory you don't have. I stared. Even from that distance, I could tell her eyes were still locked on me. I turned and walked away. I never went to 74B. I never met Talia in person. I deleted the app a few days later. I told myself it was because I was tired of dating, tired of small talk, tired of pretending. But that's not it. I didn't want to risk ever seeing another address that looked a little too familiar. I moved apartments a year later, farther from that neighborhood. I changed jobs. I tried to build a normal life again. But some nights, when I'm scrolling through my phone, I'll get a random spam email or ad with a number in it. 47B. 47 something. My chest tightens. Once, late at night, someone rang my doorbell. 3 slow presses. By the time I reached the peephole, no one was there. Just the empty corridor. The humming light. I stood there, listening. Far down the hall, on the stairwell, I heard it. The faint creak of a door opening. Too slowly. I tell myself it was a neighbor. I tell myself old buildings make sounds. I tell myself I never stepped fully into that house. That I'm safe. But sometimes, when I'm about to fall asleep, I hear her voice in my head. You already came in last time, said like a fact. Not a threat. Not a warning. Just a reminder. So if you ever go on a date and the address leads you to a quiet street, a line of identical houses, a door that opens too slowly, listen to that feeling. Check the number twice. Because sometimes the wrong house isn't just wrong. It's waiting for the version of you that didn't make it out. I will drive an extra hour home rather than spend a single night in a hotel. People laugh when I say that. I don't, because this isn't about bedbugs or bad room service. It's about a night where I walked up to the wrong door, and something on the other side was waiting for me like it already knew my name. This was 3 years ago when I was still pretending I was fine. I just hit that stage in my life where everyone around me seemed to be pairing off. Engagement photos, apartment keys, baby announcements, and there I was eating takeout on my couch, scrolling through dating apps like it was a part-time job. I was tired of games, tired of half conversations and people who disappeared mid-sentence. I told myself I wanted something serious, something grown. That's when I matched with him. Cade. His pictures looked like he actually used the gym but didn't live in it. Simple clothes, messy hair, that half-smile you see in indie films. His bio was weirdly poetic. Small lines about city lights and insomnia and how he hated shallow conversation. We started talking. He typed like he talked, if that makes sense. There was a rhythm to it. No dry hey. He paid attention. He remembered that I hated coriander. That my father had heart problems. That I couldn't sleep without white noise. He sent voice notes eventually. Low voice, calm, a little rough at the edges. The kind of voice you imagine leaning across a table to tell you a secret. If I had known what was coming, I tell myself now, I wouldn't have answered a single one. After a week, he suggested we meet. Let's do something low-key but nice, he wrote. There's a hotel downtown with a gorgeous lobby bar. Good lighting, good drinks, quiet enough to talk. Safe, public, classy. Safe, public, classy. He used the exact words I secretly wanted to hear. I told myself this was it. Finally someone mature. Someone stable. Someone who wanted the same thing. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. The hotel was one of those business ones. Polished but impersonal. Glass doors. Valet. The kind of place where the air smells like money and air freshener and the faintest hint of chlorine from a pool you can't see. It was evening when I got there. The sky outside was already dark, the city lights reflecting off the marble floor of the lobby. Warm, golden lighting washed everything in this soft glow that almost made people look unreal. Piano music played quietly from hidden speakers. A couple sat near the bar, heads bent close, laughing softly. I remember thinking, this is exactly the kind of place where real adults meet. I was nervous. I dressed up more than I wanted to admit. Fixed my hair twice in the bathroom before leaving. Checked my lipstick in the elevator reflection. I found a high-top table near the bar and texted him. I'm here, sitting near the window. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. You look beautiful. My chest fluttered. I scanned the room, smiling, expecting to catch someone lifting a hand, walking toward me. But no one did. I stared at the message. Where are you? I typed. This time the reply took longer. Hey, slight change. Come up to room 612 instead. I have a surprise. Trust me, you'll like it. That should have been my first warning. Everything inside me stiffened for a second. Hotel rooms. First date. I could literally hear my best friend's voice in my head. If the first thing a guy suggests is a private space, run. I stared at the elevator doors. My thumbs hovered. This is the part that haunts me the most. Not what happened upstairs, but the number of seconds I spent trying to talk myself out of listening to my own fear. I told myself, it's just a room, not a dungeon. It's a nice hotel with staff and cameras and security. He sounds normal. Maybe it's a cute setup, candles, dessert, something corny from a movie. I told myself I was being paranoid. Dramatic. Hard to please. So I texted back, okay. And I got into the elevator. The doors slid shut with a soft hiss. The mirrored walls reflected a pale, too serious version of me back at myself. My heart was beating too fast for how slowly the elevator moved. Soft music played overhead. Something instrumental. It didn't help. The doors opened on the 6th floor. The air was different up there. You don't notice it until you're alone in a hotel hallway. The temperature always feels a little cooler, the silence thicker. The carpet muffles your footsteps so you feel like you're floating. The hallway smelled like industrial cleaner layered over something else. Stale cigarette smoke that never quite left, and a faint, metallic tinge from the ice machine humming somewhere far away. Room numbers glowed softly on each door. I walked, my hand trailing the wall, the texture of the wallpaper rough under my fingertips. I passed a cleaning cart left against the far wall, a half-open laundry bag sagging with used towels. No voices, no TV sounds, just the dull thump of my own pulse in my ears. The door was already cracked open. Not wide, just unlatched. A slice of darkness where the hallway light couldn't reach. Every horror movie, every true crime story, every worst-case scenario I'd ever heard screamed at me then. I should have left. I should have walked back to the elevator. I should have trusted that feeling. I didn't. I raised my hand and knocked lightly against the wood. The door responded to the knock by swinging inward another inch, so slowly it was almost graceful. The soft click of the latch brushing over the frame sounded loud in the quiet. Inside was darkness. Not pitch black, more like a heavy, dense dimness. One small digital clock glowed, red somewhere deeper in the room, numbers bleeding into the shadows. The curtains were drawn tight over the window, but I could tell where it was, the outline of a rectangular shape in the far wall. And somewhere inside that dark, there was breathing. Slow, heavy, not right by the door, but deeper in the room. The kind of breathing that fills space. Inhale, exhale with a slight whistle on the exhale, like whoever it belonged to had a damaged nose or a half-blocked throat. Cade, I whispered. The sound of my voice died too quickly inside. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a shadow shifted. Broad, tall, a darker patch within the dark. Not coming toward me, but I could see it was standing between that faint window outline and the rest of the room. Like whatever it was blocking the only source of outside light. The breathing hitched for a second, then resumed, louder now, closer to a growl dragged over metal. Every part of my body pulled backward. My fingers curled around the edge of the door, nails biting into the painted wood. My shoulder started to tremble. This wasn't a cute surprise. This wasn't flowers or candles or room service. The air smelled wrong in there, not like cologne or food or even stale sweat. It was colder, with a dampness that didn't match the climate-controlled corridor. Under it was something sharp and metallic, like cold coins on your tongue, like blood. I took one small step back, the carpet whispering under my heel. There's a diner off the highway near my town that I will cross 4 lanes of traffic to avoid driving past. People think I'm exaggerating when I say that. I wish I was. This happened when I was 27, back when I worked night shifts at a small hospital. Midnight for me wasn't spooky, it was routine. I knew the way the world sounds at 3 a.m. when most people are asleep. I knew the color of fluorescent lights on No Sleep, the feel of vending machine coffee in an empty waiting room. Back then, I actually liked the quiet. I thought it meant peace. I was also lonely. Most of my friends worked days. They were going to brunch while I was trying to close my eyes against morning sun. I'd get off at 11:30 p.m. with nowhere to be that wasn't my small, silent apartment. That's how I ended up on that app, swiping through strangers' faces during slow shifts. That's how I met Theo. His profile was simple. Black t-shirt, messy hair, tired smile. No fake travel pics, no gym mirror. His bio said, insomniac, night owl, Better at 2 a.m. conversations than small talk. We started messaging. Felt easy. He worked late too, he said, warehouse nights, sorting shipments. He sent long, thoughtful replies. Asked questions that made me feel like he was actually listening. He told me he liked old diners. The kind with sticky tables and burnt coffee. Places that remember people. If I had known what was coming, I would have unmatched him the second he wrote that. One night, around 10:45 p.m., while I was on my break gulping down stale coffee in the staff room, he texted, "Midnight breakfast date? There's this quiet diner near your route home. Open late. Cozy. No crowds. My treat." Midnight was my normal. Breakfast after a shift wasn't weird to me. I pictured neon lights, greasy eggs, something warm and human before I went home to sleep alone. A little alarm went off in my chest. First date, weird hour, remote spot, but I smothered it with logic. It's public. It's a diner. It's fine. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. I clocked out a few minutes early and drove there. The diner sat just off a side road, away from the main highway. I'd seen it before but never stopped. One of those low, squat buildings with a long row of windows and a flickering sign that just said, "Diner" in tired red letters. No name. The parking lot was almost empty. One truck near the side. A car with fogged windows way in the back. The air outside was cold enough that my breath came out in faint white clouds. The only sound was the distant rush of highway and a buzzing street lamp. When I pushed the glass door open, a little bell rang overhead. The sound seemed too loud in the quiet. Inside, the light was wrong. Most of the overhead fluorescents were off. The long counter in front of the open kitchen was dark. The row of booths by the windows were in shadow, their red vinyl seats dull and colorless in the low light. Only one booth was lit, the one in the center. A single hanging lamp glowed above it, casting this harsh yellow circle like a spotlight on a stage. Theo sat in it, hands folded on the table, back straight, head slightly bowed. Like he'd been waiting so long, he'd settled into some quiet endurance. No staff, no clinking plates, no hiss of a grill, just the faint hum of a refrigerator somewhere and the distant buzz of the one working light. That should have been my first warning. My sneakers stuck slightly to the floor with each step, that familiar tacky diner feeling. The air smelled like old grease and burnt coffee, but underneath it was something else. Damp, metallic, like wet steel or cold blood on metal. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. He didn't look up at first. Up close, he looked thinner than his photos, hollowed out around the eyes. His hands were pale, fingers interlaced too tightly, knuckles white. "Theo?" I tried again. Slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes were red, not just tired red. The skin around them was raw, like he'd been rubbing them for hours. The whites were veined and irritated. There were dark crescents underneath, the kind you get when you've been awake far, far too long. He stared at me like he was trying to figure out if I was real. "Don't scream," he whispered. My chest tightened, that small alarm in me exploding into a siren. My first instinct was to laugh it off, make a joke, diffuse the tension. But the look in his eyes killed the joke in my throat. He looked terrified. Not of me, of something else. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice coming out smaller than I wanted. He flicked his gaze past me, toward the kitchen. "Sit," he said, still whispering. "Just don't scream. It reacts to loud sounds." My stomach turned. I realized then that we weren't alone in the building. There was a sound, very soft at first, so low I'd mistaken it for machinery. A humming. Not the smooth whir of a fridge or the steady drone of a vent. This was uneven, rising and falling, almost like a tune without notes. A vibration that you felt more in your chest than in your ears. Came from the kitchen, from the darkness behind the counter. The hair on my arms stood up. My fingers tingled, like my body was preparing to run and hadn't told my brain yet. "That's just equipment, right?" I said, staring toward the unlit kitchen. "Like a freezer?" Theo shook his head once. The motion was jerky, like it hurt him. "It heard you come in," he murmured. "Theo, what is this?" Where's the staff? Why is it so dark in here? His tongue darted out to wet, cracked lips. His hands tightened further, veins standing out. They let us stay after hours, he said. They think it's good for business. What is? He finally looked at me like he regretted everything that led to this moment. It's hungry, he said quietly. We shouldn't have come. The humming grew louder, not by much but enough. It shifted from a low vibration to something with texture, like a throat trying to form sound. I could feel it in the soles of my feet, in the cheap cushion of the booth. And underneath it, something else. A scrape, metal on tile, slow, dragging. I swallowed hard. The air felt thicker, like the heat from the hanging lamp was pressing down on us while the rest of the diner stayed cold. I'm leaving, I said, my voice shaking. This isn't funny. I started to slide out of the booth. That's when the metal tray slammed in the kitchen. The sound snapped through the diner like a gunshot. Clang. Crashed against something. Counter? Wall? Hard enough that the entire room seemed to vibrate. The hanging lamp above us swung slightly, throwing shadows across the table. My heart lurched so violently I had to grab the edge of the table to steady myself. In the sudden silence after, I realized I could hear another sound clearly now. Crawling. Fast. Something scraping along the kitchen floor, moving in quick, short bursts. Not footsteps. Not human. The rhythm was wrong. Too many contact points. A chorus of tiny staccato impacts mixed with a heavier drag, like something big being pulled by many smaller parts. Theo's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. His fingers were ice cold. Bone and tendon and desperation. We have to go, he hissed, eyes wild. Now. What is that? I demanded, my voice cracking, louder than I meant. The humming surged in response. It went from a distant vibration to a close, thrumming sound that seemed to come from the walls. The air felt suddenly damp, like someone had opened a freezer full of rotten meat. Don't talk, he said. Don't look at it. Just move. He yanked me out of the booth with more strength than his thin frame should have had. My knee hit the edge of the table. Pain flashed white-hot up my leg, but adrenaline swallowed it fast. The scraping grew frantic now, a frantic skittering toward the front. Something large knocked into a counter, sending utensils clattering to the floor. The pass-through window between kitchen and counter remained a dark rectangle. For some reason, that made it worse, that it stayed hidden even as it moved. We half ran, half stumbled toward the door. The floor felt like it wanted to hold onto my shoes, every sticky patch of old syrup and grease grabbing at the rubber soles. The bell over the entrance was a dim shape ahead, haloed in the dirty glow of the outside street lamp. Behind us, the humming broke into something that sounded like breath, a wet, rattling inhale, followed by a hiss of air that raised goosebumps along my spine. I made the mistake of turning my head, just once. In the darkness behind the counter, something huge shifted. I couldn't see details, only impressions. Length where there shouldn't be length. Limbs that bent in more than one place. A suggestion of too many angles stacked on top of each other, like a shadow that had been folded and refolded wrong. And eyes, not glowing, not dramatic, just open. Too many of them, at all the wrong heights, looking at us. My scream caught in my throat and came out as this broken, animal sound. The bell above the door burst into a harsh jangle as we slammed through it. Cold night air hit my face like water. Behind us, something collided with the metal frame of the pass-through window with a deafening crash. We didn't stop running. Not across the lot, not as we fumbled with our car doors. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys once, metal clattering against asphalt, fingers numb as I snatched them up again. I don't remember starting the engine. I don't remember pulling out. I just remember tires squealing, gravel spitting, the diner shrinking in my rearview mirror. For a second, just one, I glanced up. In one of the front windows, something moved. A shadow, tall and wrong, smearing across the glass like oil. It wasn't Theo. It wasn't any shape that made sense. It reached the window and stopped, like it couldn't cross that invisible line between inside and out. My chest felt like it was caving in. By the time I got home, my legs were shaking so hard I had to sit in the car for 10 full minutes before I trusted myself to stand. My clothes smelled like stale grease and something else I couldn't name. Theo never messaged me again. His profile disappeared the next day. I called the diner once, weeks later, when I finally forced myself to believe it had really happened. The woman who answered spoke in short, irritated sentences. They didn't remember a Theo. They didn't close early that night, she said. They were open their regular hours. Staff always present. I drove past once in daylight. It looked normal. Sunlight bouncing off chrome. A server wiping down tables. A couple of guys at the counter drinking coffee. Like nothing had ever happened. But even from my car, with the windows rolled up, I could feel it. That slight wrongness in the air around that building, like heat distortion over asphalt. And sometimes, late at night, when my insomnia creeps back and my apartment is too quiet, I hear it again. That low humming. Not from my fridge. Not from the street. From somewhere just beyond the walls. A vibration that climbs into my bones and sits there until my hands start to shake. I get this image in my head of that empty diner. Lights off. Chairs flipped on tables. And something in the kitchen waiting for the bell over the door to ring. So if anyone ever tells you about a quiet, cozy, open-late place for a midnight date, especially if they say the staff will let you stay after hours, listen to that tightening in your chest. Because not every late-night place is just understaffed or creepy. Some of them are feeding something you can't see, and some of them only stay open if people keep walking in. I can't sit in a restaurant without checking who's behind me. Not just a quick glance, either. I have to see their face, their posture, their hands. I have to know exactly where they are in relation to my neck, to my back, to the space right behind my shoulder. If I can't see them, I can't eat. This didn't used to be a thing. I used to sit wherever. Back to the room, front to the wall, didn't matter. I could lose myself in my phone, in food, in conversation. That was before last summer. Before a dill. Before the man who sat behind me. I just moved to the city then. You know that kind of move where you tell everyone you're excited and ready for a fresh start, but you're really just scared and broke and pretending? That was me. I worked double shifts at a clothing store on the ground floor of an overcrowded mall. Constant music, artificial light, cheap perfume and fabric dust in the air. On breaks, I sat alone in the food court, scrolling through my phone with greasy fingers, feeling like I was on the outside of my own life looking in. Lonely, stressed, exhausted. That's a dangerous combination. So when I matched with a guy named Adil, clean haircut, soft smile, nothing flashy, I wanted it to mean something. His profile was boring in that safe way. No shirtless selfies. No angry quotes. Just a line about liking books and good coffee in quiet places. We started talking. He replied like someone who had a job and a life. Not too fast, not too slow. He asked real questions. Remembered that I worked late. Sent a good luck voice note before my first sales shift in the new store. I should have listened to that feeling. I tell myself now, the tiny buzz of unease under the excitement. The way my chest tightened when he suggested meeting in person so quickly. But back then, I told myself I was being paranoid. Dramatic. Still jumpy from the move. He suggested a small cafe 5 minutes from my apartment. Warm lights, quiet, good coffee, he wrote. You'll like it. I Googled it. Pictures looked nice. Wooden tables, hanging plants, soft yellow bulbs strung along the ceiling. Cozy, safe, normal. We set the time for 8 p.m. after my shift. By the time I stepped out of the mall that evening, my shoulders ached from hangers and fake smiles. The sky was already turning that deep, bruised blue. Taxi headlights smeared across wet pavement. The city smelled like rain, exhaust, and something frying in oil. I changed in the staff bathroom. Fresh top, a little concealer under my eyes, lip balm that smelled faintly like vanilla. I checked myself twice in the mirror, trying to convince myself I looked like I belonged here. Like this wasn't a mistake. The cafe sat on a side street just off the main road. The windows glowed golden in the dark, little ovals of light spilling onto the sidewalk. Inside, I could see shelves of mismatched mugs, A chalkboard menu. A barista steaming milk. My phone buzzed as I walked. Adil, I got us the corner booth near the back. Table 6. I'm here. A small thread of relief ran through me. He was already there. I wouldn't have to sit alone pretending to scroll. I pushed open the door. A little bell chimed above my head. Warm air hit me, coffee, sugar, something cinnamon, old wood. Took my eyes a second to adjust. The cafe was longer than it looked from outside, stretching back past the counter into a dimmer area with booths along the wall. I scanned for table 6. There it was. A small booth with 2 mugs already on it. A candle flickering in a glass jar. Empty. I frowned, turned my head. He wasn't at the table he'd claimed. He was sitting at the booth behind it, back against the wall, hands folded in his lap, staring straight at me. No smile, no little wave, just watching. Something in my chest sank. That should have been my first warning. But I forced a smile anyway, because that's what we do, right? I walked over, my boots making soft sounds on the wooden floor. Hey, I said, gesturing at the table in front. I thought you said table 6. Did we get moved or? He blinked slowly like it took a second for my voice to reach him. Hey, he said. His voice sounded quieter than his notes. Flatter. Yeah, I changed my mind. This one is better. He didn't explain why. Up close, he looked like his photos, but worn down. Slight stubble he hadn't bothered to trim. Faint shadows under his eyes. His hair was neat, but there was something frayed at the edges of him, like a sweater pulled one too many times. I slid into the booth opposite him, my back to the cafe, facing the wall behind him. A candle flickered between us, the flame throwing little shadows across his face. How was your shift? He asked, almost mechanically. Busy, I said. We had a sale, it was insane. I thought I'd. He cut me off by looking past me. Not a quick glance. A fixed stare over my shoulder, like something behind me had just moved. The skin at the back of my neck prickled. I forced a small laugh. What? Do I have something on me? He didn't answer right away. His eyes tracked something up and down, like he was watching someone stand up and sit down again. He murmured. He really followed you. A chill slid down my spine. Who? I asked, my smile dying without my permission. His gaze snapped back to my face. For a second, something like guilt flickered there. Sorry, he said. Forget it. Long day. I'm weird when I'm tired. But he kept doing it. Every time I tried to steer the conversation back to normal things. Favorite films, why he liked this place, how long he'd lived in the city. His gaze drifted past me, over my shoulder, to the space directly behind my head. It wasn't just glancing, either. It looked like anticipation, waiting for a reaction, or a response. My shoulders started to ache from how tense I was. The candle flame seemed too bright, the cafe too warm. I could feel sweat gathering under my collar and between my shoulder blades, despite the air conditioning humming softly above. If I had known what was coming, I whispered to myself now, I would have stood up right there and left. Instead, I pretended I didn't notice. That's what I'm good at. Pretending I don't notice when something is wrong until it's too late. We were 20 minutes in, halfway through lukewarm cappuccinos, when it happened. He leaned in. Not flirtatious close, not date close, confession close. His elbows rested on the table, fingers laced, head dipped so the candlelight drew hard lines across his features. I could smell his breath, coffee, faint mint, something sour underneath like he hadn't eaten properly. Don't react, he said quietly. The tone of his voice made my stomach drop. That's not funny, I tried to say, came out thin. I'm not joking, he whispered. You can't look, okay? My heart started to pound. I could hear it in my ears, feel it in my fingertips. What are you talking about? I tried to keep my voice light, but it trembled. His eyes didn't leave mine now. They were wider than before, the whites more visible, the dark centers almost swallowing the candle's reflection. He followed you here, he said, voice barely above breath. There's someone sitting right behind you. My throat closed. Stop, I said. Seriously, that's not cool. Adil shook his head, a short, tight movement. He's been behind you since you came in, he continued. He sat down when you did. He won't stop staring at your neck. My skin crawled. Every nerve at the back of my neck lit up at once, like someone had run an electric current through just that strip of skin. I felt it. Warmth, too localized to be the room. A pocket of air just above my collar, like someone's face was inches away from me, hovering there. You're messing with me, I whispered. If you turn, he said, he'll move. You won't see him. He doesn't like being seen. But he likes me. So sometimes I can tell when he's there. You sound crazy, I snapped, desperately clinging to anger because terror felt too big. I know, he said, and his eyes suddenly looked very, very tired. I told you I was weird. The warmth on my neck increased. Then I heard it, a low exhale, right against my skin. Not a normal breath. There was a wetness to it, a faint rattle, like whoever it belonged to had something in their throat. The air that rolled over my neck smelled faintly of damp cloth and something metallic, like the inside of old plumbing. My whole body went rigid. Goosebumps raced down both arms, over my legs, across my scalp. My fingers dug into the edge of the table so hard my nails hurt. Adil, I said, my voice barely a sound. Stop talking. Please, just stop. He swallowed. He likes when I bring people, he said, so softly I almost didn't hear it. But he doesn't like when I get attached. A wave of nausea hit me. The breath came again, slightly louder. My hair moved, just a little, like someone had gently blown across it. I couldn't breathe properly. Every inhale felt shallow, stuck in my chest. My heart was racing so hard I thought it might just give up. I focused on Adil's face because that was the only thing that didn't feel like it was tilting. My peripheral vision blurred. The sounds of the cafe, the clink of cups, the hiss of the espresso machine, someone laughing near the door, went distant, like they were playing in another room. I don't know how long I sat there like that. Then a waiter walked by. His shoe squeaked against the floor as he stepped behind me, the air shifting as he carried a tray. The candle flame shivered. For a split second, the warmth on my neck vanished, like something had ducked, slid away, under the table, into the shadows, just out of reach. The sudden absence was almost as bad as the presence. My body, still locked in terror, didn't know what to do with the emptiness. Adil stood abruptly. The legs of the booth scraped loudly against the floor. A couple at a nearby table glanced over. He threw some cash onto the table with a shaking hand. We should leave, he said. He doesn't like when I talk to new people this long. That sentence broke something in me. I slid out of the booth so fast I nearly knocked the candle over. My knees were weak. My ankles felt like they'd forgotten how to work. I gripped the edge of the table, then the booth, then the back of a chair as I practically stumbled toward the door. I did not look back. Not once. The bell above the door chimed as I shoved it open. The night air slapped my face, cool and sharp. I gulped it down like I'd been underwater. I half ran all the way home. Later, in my apartment with every light on, my phone buzzed. A message from Adil. Sorry, I should have canceled. I thought maybe he'd be quiet this time. I stared at it for a long time. Then I blocked him. I didn't sleep that night, or the next, or properly for weeks. At work, I started choosing tables where my back was to a wall and my eyes could see the whole room. In break rooms, I sat in corners. On trains, I fought the urge to turn every time I felt the faintest whisper of air on my neck. Because sometimes at night, when I'm brushing my teeth in my tiny bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror, I feel it again. Warm breath, right there. The air behind me shifts, just slightly. A loose strand of hair stirs. And in the mirror, for a fraction of a second, the space between my shoulder and the doorframe looks darker. Like someone is standing just out of frame, leaning in. I whip around. There's never anyone there. But the feeling doesn't go. So if you ever sit down in a cafe, and the person you're meeting chooses the booth behind the one they told you, and they keep looking over your shoulder like something's right behind you, and every instinct in your body tightens. Listen, because some people bring baggage into dates, and some people bring something else. Something that learns the curve of your neck, the sound of your breathing, the exact distance between your pulse and its mouth. I still can't sit in a restaurant without checking who's behind me, and sometimes when I forget for a second, I feel breath on my skin, reminding me. Would you like me to expand more stories in this style?